Door slammer match racing in the mid-70s featured drag racing superstars such as Dyno Don Nicholson, Bill Grumpy Jenkins, Bob Glidden, Ronnie Sox, and Wayne Gapp, among others. Week after week, track promoters would promote these races and fill the stands with fans cheering on their favorite driver. The October 1976 issue of Carcraft magazine has an article titled King of the Hill by Jon Asher, which paints an accurate picture of match racing during this period. It happens to feature my great-uncle, Dyno Don Nicholson. Sit back and allow me to read the article in its entirety, accompanied by images from the article and pictures of his legendary Ford Mustang II Pro Stock car from the Nicholson family archives. King of the Hill, Match Racing with the Best of the Rosin Sweepers, Dyno Don Nicholson, by Jon Asher. It's hard to believe that Donald Nicholson, more popularly known to thousands of fans as Dino Don, will be 50 next year. This alert, constantly on-the-go drag racer, this man who will run a 3-round match race in South Carolina on a Friday night, drive 600 miles to do it all over again Saturday night, and then strip the car down to prepare it for a major national event in 4 days later, will soon be a half-century old. He never quits, never slows down. The only sign of the pressures that must constantly beset him are the ever-present packages of Rolaids that bulge from his shirt pockets, roll crazily across the dash of the truck as it changes lanes, and fill the top drawer of the toolbox. It's not just an ulcer, just a little over-acid condition, says Dyno. Sure, Dyno, we believe you. Still, maybe he's right. Mechanic/helper Levine Camp relishes telling the story of the hard-fought touch football game played in Detroit between Dyno and a much younger group of racer types. When all of them lay gasping for breath, Nicholson was still fresh and eager to play. He seemed disappointed when they begged off. Nicholson was the first of the big-time run-what-you-brung match racers, making his first trip to the Southeast from his California home in 1961. The name of the track was Easy Street Dragstrip, which was located in the megapolis of Dunn, North Carolina. Nicholson's 409 Chevy was guaranteed a whopping $200 to appear. When the dust had settled, Dyno was the big winner, pocketing a huge purse for the day, $600. It was the start of a 16-year career that has seen Nicholson racing at more tracks in more out-of-the-way places than anyone, with the possible exception of Don Garlits. During the years of Ford's domination in Pro Stock, the big winners were Wayne Gapp and Bob Glidden. Nicholson was usually expected to be a threat, but failed to emerge with decisive victories after '73. It wasn't that he didn't try. Unlike most of the other door slammer racers, Nicholson consistently used his best equipment, match racing, and then appeared at the major events with wounded pieces. For the likes of Dyno, Jenkins, and a few others, match racing has always been a lucrative profession. Within the last 3 years, the marketplace has opened up sufficiently to provide a decent living for a dozen well-known pro stock racers. Dyno and the others spend the months from April through November whipping the newcomers. It's not that the Gliddens, Gapps, and Booths don't run hard. It's more often a case of them, 1, not being familiar with the subtleties of match racing, like a 500 cubic inch engine, a 2,000-pound race car, or a combination of 2. Or 2, being somewhat hesitant about attempting mid-8-second passes at almost 160 miles per hour on a track that's as wide as the average suburban driveway and only slightly longer. Nicholson and the other heavies, weaned at such facilities, put the hammer down, close their eyes, and hope for the best. Even in a losing effort, Nicholson's popularity level remains Richter points ahead of his opponents. He's eager to banter with the most inebriated fan, exchange information with the track's unofficial bookie, answer the youngest boys' questions, and pass out color photos to the huge crowd that invariably gathers around his transporter after each round of racing. He wins over track officials by asking their advice on which lane to choose if he wins the coin toss, but always uses his own judgment in the end. A small thing, but asking the track people's advice is just one more move destined to give him an advantage at the box office. And every edge counts in a business where there's always someone ready to run at a cheaper price. Few tracks epitomize run-what-you-brung match racing better than Summerduck Dragstrip near Culpeper, Virginia. Almost lost among the rolling hill country southwest of Washington, D.C., Summerduck appears to have seen better days. Locals insist the track is as unchanging as the sunrise and sunset, having remained more or less untouched for possibly 20 years. It fits the description every drag racing snob subconsciously gives all southern, small-time operations. It's short, narrow, bumpy, dirty, dusty, and remote. Yet its paying customers are more enthusiastic than most major event crowds, despite the fact that their knowledge of racing on the national level is extremely limited. Nicholson provided the track management with the ideal confrontation when he took Lee Edwards' track record away from Chevrolet some months ago, and the rematch promised to be exciting. Underlying the public display of emotions between the two men were Nicholson's bitter feelings about an incident that had taken place at an IHRA event during the winter months. Nobody at the track knew about it, but it undoubtedly spurred Nicholson on to greater effort. From the larger Washington suburbs, it's a 3-hour ride along 2-lane, look-alike roads to Summerduck. All the while, Dino Don prepares himself for what he loves best. Match racing where the only limitations are carburetors and gasoline. Still the youngster at heart, Dino Don admits feeling excited about performing the routine he's been doing almost automatically for 16 years. He knows going in that Edwards will go all out to retake his record, but Dino will be ready for him. Following Nicholson are his wife and the couple's Winnebago, and Ken Gickerson and his wife, with whom the Nicholsons have been staying for the past week. While others are spending their money at motels, Nicholson has been cultivating a string of rest stops all over the East Coast. However, lest you think of Dino as taking advantage of people, rest assured that they're just as eager to have him as he is to be there. Despite the fact that at least a dozen race cars in tow have passed going in the opposite direction, Nicholson knows he's headed in the right direction. The only indication that the drag strip is near is an ancient shotgun pellet-hold Pepsi-Cola sign propped against a rock alongside the roadway. The actual entrance road to the track is a dusty gravel path that winds its way through the trees to a small clearing where a t-shirted man sitting on a folding chair serves as gate guard, ticket seller, and emergency crew if an errant race car should get as far as the end of the track at his location. Beside the ticket taker, a youngster lounges on a dusty Kawasaki. "I'll be pulling for you, Dino," he drawls, pointing to his Dino Don fan club decal proudly displayed on his bike. Somehow I don't feel as if I'm emotionally prepared for what is to come. As we creep across a tiny wooden bridge, Nicholson points to some well-worn hay bales. That's the end of the track, and if you can't stop, you can head for the bridge. The trouble is, if there's a car on the bridge, you've only got 2 choices: going into the creek bed or taking your chances with the trees. He laughs, cackling like the harbinger of doom. It seems funny to him since he's never had to make that choice. Judging from the ripped trees, splintered wood on the bridge, and rusty bumpers poking from the creek bed, countless others have. It takes 15 minutes to traverse the quarter-mile from the gates to the pit area reserved for Nicholson beside Edwards' transporter. All the while, Nicholson responds to the shouts from the fans high above him in the trees atop the embankment that surround much of the track. Literally carved out of the dirt, the spectators in the upper balcony have uncomfortable seating, but one hell of a good view. Once the truck is parked, the fans seem to hang back, awaiting the unloading of the yellow and red Mustang. When the ramps are down and the car makes its appearance, the area becomes a mob scene as the youngest and the oldest besiege Nicholson for photos, autographs, and small talk. After a terse greeting to Edwards, Nicholson begins preparing his car, pouring water lovingly into his aluminum match race motor while Gilkerson adds the expensive racing gasoline to the tank. The car is warmed up just like a funny car, with the rear wheels spinning high up in the air, and the youngsters standing as close as they dare, with grimy fingers jammed in their ears and eyes as wide as silver dollars. Nicholson shuts the motor down and speaks a few quiet words to a 10-year-old as he climbs through the spaghetti-like tubing of the roll cage. For the remainder of the day, the boy stays within touching distance of his hero. When the first round is finally called, and Dino knows he will be in the right lane, a grim look of determination crosses his face. While the left lane is bumpy off the starting line, the right lane features a Grand Canyon-like hole, making bite impossible to find. As Dino and Edwards stroll out to perform the ancient Rosin sweeping ritual, the announcer, ensconced in a concrete block tower, screams so loudly and hysterically into his microphone about the coming race that nobody can possibly understand him. The spectators, well within spitting distance of the track, exchange encouragement with their chosen favorites, most of which is acknowledged by a wave or a smile. While Nicholson has the rosin procedure down to a showy science, Edwards attacks his lane as if it were a dirty street corner, a subtle difference probably noticed by less than 3 people at the track. With the track prepared, both men climb into their missiles and prepare for the launch. Edwards has the power, as his Vega is stuffed with a 500 cubic inch aluminum rat motor for this most important of match races. Nicholson's diminutive aluminum motor almost sounds like a stalker compared to the throaty roar of Edwards' Chevrolet, but sound does not a winner make. Edwards' series of burnouts are straight as an arrow, wheels up charges, while Dino Don's efforts produce instant left turns, a definite problem at a driveway narrow track like Summerduck. Quickly, Nicholson motions to Levin and Gilkerson to adjust the wheelie bars as he hopes it will help. But as the car pulls to the lane, I can see the determination on Nicholson's face giving way to concern. As the tree flashes green, Edwards' Vega leaps for the finish line, while Nicholson's machine leaps for the opposite lane. As Dino shuts down, Edwards' car passes through the lights and out of sight over the hill into the minuscule shutoff area. The crowd is screaming, and the announcer proclaims Edwards the new track record holder with a 5:43. Within 10 minutes, he will announce Lee's time 3 different ways, but no matter, he has won at least the first round. Between the first and second rounds, Nicholson quietly prepares his car as a constant stream of well-wishers parade past Edwards' transporter, now jammed with all of his local fans, as the balding driver stands in the hot sun, adjusting the valves on his monster motor. About an hour later, the cars pull to the line again, with the lanes reversed, and Nicholson now appears to have the edge. Still, if he wins this one, we know he'll be in the bad, defined as a relative term in this track, lane for the third and final round. Again the Rosin routine, and again the burnouts. This time Dino's car goes straight, but astonishingly, so does Edwards' Vega. Could it be that he's found the elusive groove? They stage with the RPM sky high, and then leave together on the green, with Nicholson's car hooking well, and Edwards' Vega digging for the opposite lane. This time the Ford is the clear victor, tying Edwards' newly won track record with an identical 5:43, as the Chevy trails with a 5:46. As I head back across the guardrail into the pits, I know only that Nicholson has won. It takes a committee of 3 to explain the rantings of the announcer, who by now is a preaching apoplexy due to the excitement of the match race. Most of the spectators seem to be in the same emotional state, and in several areas funds are being exchanged as winners and losers congregate to contemplate their final wagers. Preparations for the third round complete, and most of the track's regular racing program also at an end, we approach the starting line in time to witness a Chevy 2 depositing oil and parts all over the lane of which Don must defend the honor of Ford in a few moments. By now, just one race remains other than the final go with Edwards, and the low-key crowd is content to sit quietly while the track manager sends a pickup truck to a nearby sawmill for sawdust to pick up the oil. 15 minutes pass before the truck arrives, and then Nicholson and even the Edwards crew pitch in to help clean up the mess. Nicholson then gets out his biggest can of rosin and begins to sweep in a lane-wide path for the bracket number 1 final, a move cheered on by the few hundred remaining racers and spectators. Edwards is forced to follow suit, and soon a pair of Camaro drivers are doing burnouts and backing up like the professionals. Their race over, Nicholson attacks his lane with the rosin can once again, this time leaving alone the right side track laid down by the Camaro and putting down fresh material for his left tire. He theorizes that by improving the left side bite, he may be able to negate the car's desire to turn in that direction. This time there are no less than 6 burnouts from each car, and on each one Nicholson's car seems to go straighter and straighter. Edwards is in trouble, but he doesn't know it yet. Sensing an upset of sorts, the hillside spectators around me are climbing to their feet as the cars stage. At the green, they blast from the line together, mere inches separating the 2 cars. Nicholson pulls second gear first, jumps to a commanding lead, and suddenly it's over, as all that can be seen from the starting line is a pair of parachutes rapidly disappearing over the top of the hill. The announcer calls it a new track record for Nicholson at 5.27, with Edwards a heartbeat behind at 5.35. There is a scattered cheering, but mostly a rush to their cars as the spectators try to jam their way out the one exit road as quickly as possible. By the time Nicholson turns his car around and drives back up the track to the transporter, only a handful of fans remain. Grinning from ear to ear, he climbs out of the race car. "Hot damn," he grins, slapping his hands together like a kid who's just won his first round of CSA at the local track. Lee's reaction is quite different. Quickly, he sweeps out his now empty transporter, pulls the car inside, and slams the door down. It's hard to fathom 2 professional racers caring as much as they obviously do, but their reactions are anything but an act. They really care. That's a heck of a thing to find out after you've been going around thinking the racers didn't care whether they won or lost their match races. Just what is this world coming to anyway? The end. Check out author Doug Boyce's excellent historical books about drag racing, available at dynodon.com or on Amazon. Learn more about Dino Don and his cars by visiting dynodon.com.